All of this began with something called the Henry Crown Fellowship Program at the Aspen Institute. I'm an early fellow. I was in the second class of Henry Crown Fellows. My project, which is a required part of the fellowship, was to begin to create, I didn't know it at the time, the Aspen Global Leadership Network. We pulled together groups of 20 people. We call them fellows. Each of them is an entrepreneur. Each of them has been very successful at what they do, and each of them is ready to engage in a conversation about what more they could do of significance in the world to tackle some great challenges.
It's really just given me clearer direction and focus. So whereas I had all the good intentions previously and was not really sure how to harness them.
Most of the leaders involved in this are in positions of authority or of some influence, so usually we're kind of focused on conviction, whereas this space allows for introspection.
The fellowship provided me with the tools that I felt was critically important to be an effective leader, not only in terms of the technical tools, but the key values that differentiates an average leader from a phenomenal leader.
It's just that spirit of, okay, our lives really ought to be about making the world a better place, and that our work ought to really emanate first from values.
It's not always easy to do the right thing that you know you needed to do, unless you had people around and behind and in front of you who are constantly talking to you about it, and you use them as a sounding board.
You feel you're really not alone, struggling and dealing with the things that you deal with back home.
We encourage each of our fellows to dig deep, to step back and do some thinking, to pause and ask themselves, what is it you're really passionate about? Is it education? Is it healthcare? Is it issues of social justice? Is it poverty? What do you really care about? And then we ask them to step up and figure out what they might do.
As I have sat through individual conversations, and as I have sat through group meetings, and as I have participated in broader collections of fellows, I have been motivated to try to do more in my career. And as a result of that motivation, for several years I have worked very hard to try to become the Chief Judge of the South Carolina Court of Appeals, and that decision to seek that position was made right in the middle of the 2 years of my fellowship.
I'm looking at new opportunities now that I really never would have considered, but I kind of feel like I have to, because I don't want to let the fellowship down, and I actually see that I'm going to have them have my back.
We have fellows who are using their business platforms to do amazing things, using the power of their business to create social change.
Developing a leadership academy for girls that we're building outside of Pune.
We work with entrepreneurs that have the opportunity to scale.
Is to build clean energy power plants across the country in order to provide power to the 400 million people in our country who don't even know what power looks like.
They've succeeded usually in business, because most of them, although not all of them are in business, because they're entrepreneurs. Now, it's one thing to challenge someone to do something, we've got to help them. So what do? We use our network to introduce them to others who are concerned about the same sorts of things. We connect them, and we encourage them to learn from one another so they're not reinventing the wheel. We provide the fellows with mentors who can help them to think through their project ideas. And of course, our role in the network is to continue prodding them, saying, do more, keep acting, keep pushing.
There are spectacular individuals here, and they have so much to share. So I learn every time I'm engaged with the fellowship about the successes, about the creativity that is just astounding, that gives me that drive, that belief that we can do things that are a little bit bigger than ourselves.
There's no question that all of the people that I'm working with at Hyatt have realized some impact of the time that I spent here in my ongoing relationships with my classmates and others that I've met through the Institute.
I have an assurance that in every corner of the world there is someone working on trying to help and on trying to make things better.
Conversations that started with 20 of us, when we were still, I'd say, pretty inwardly focused, now take on a much more global role because there's people from all around the world, because we're now at a place in our careers and our lives where we can think about how to address issues in a much bigger way.
You know, it's a very much of an introspective moment for me right now, where I can say, what more can I do? Because I don't want to stop.
Really powerful to see an environment where you can really engage with ideas and then in a relatively short span of time turn them into action.
I feel like the potential of this network, we've only scratched the surface of it, and what excites me is what we can do with that potential.
My excitement comes from seeing what happens when fellows meet each other, little light bulbs go off over their heads, they realize they're actually interested in the same things, they're interested in changing the world in the same way, they connect, they collaborate, sparks fly.